Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and this fall long we're going to take a look at jump boxes or bastions. So this shouldn't be too difficult. It's been a while since I've actually launched one, but I remember there being one from the EC2 marketplace that we could utilize. So hopefully that will work great in our scenario here. So let's make our way over to EC2, and we're not going to launch an instance just yet. We're going to look at the marketplace and see what options we have available to us. If we browse for more AMIs, I'm just going to type in Jumpbox and see what we get. So Jumpbox, and we'll give it a moment to populate. So in the marketplace, guacamole is the one that I use, so I would probably go ahead and use this again. It does have a trial, so that is totally fine with me. So let's go take a look here, and we have one for ARM64 or the regular. I'm going to go into this one. Pricing here is 0.8 an hour. If you do not want to have any kind of expense, I totally understand that, and you can just completely watch here, but I just want to show you how we can go ahead and start using one. I'm going to go take a look at the usage, as it's been, again, a little while since I've done this, but I'll be back here in just a moment. All right, so I think I've read enough, but the idea is that we could launch an instance here. We are going to need a specialized instance profile, so let's go ahead and launch that. So this is a CloudFormation stack that they have. We'll go ahead and hit next, and we'll take a look at what it is that is being spun up here before we actually do launch it. So we'll go next. I acknowledge. And it doesn't show me here. Let's go ahead and create a change set. So change set will let us see what it is. And I'm just waiting for this to become available. So it's going to create an instance profile and IAM role. So that seems good enough. So we'll go ahead and execute that. And so we're going to end up here with a this. By the way, I didn't tear these down in one of my previous ones. So, if you see anything that is kicking around that you need to get rid of, make sure you do that. I do my best to try to get everything, but not always the best at grabbing all that stuff. So that is spinning up. I don't think we need to really spin up a new VPC for this, but maybe we will. I haven't decided yet. I'm thinking about it. Because the whole point of a jump box is to get access to something like a private instance. So maybe we should spin up a VPC while we're waiting here. So I'm going to go ahead over to VPC. We're going to create a new VPC. I'm going to say this is for Jumpbox. 10.0.0.0.16 is fine by me. 1 AZ, 1 public subnet, 1 private subnet, no NAT gateway, no VPC endpoints. We'll go ahead and create this. And so now that's spun up. We create our instance profile. It says here, enable cross-account access. The Guacamole agent is able to discover instances in the AWS account other than the AWS account it was launched in. It will query the VPC for transit gateway attachments or peering connections if the VPC is connected in a VPC in a different account, etc., etc. So it seems like there is a bunch of options here. To enable cross-account discovery for EC2 instances, create the following IAM role. So the thing is, we don't need to do anything cross-account as we're doing everything in one place, so I don't think that is necessary. So I'm going to just skip that. We're just waiting for this IAM or instance profile to create. This takes a little bit of time, so we'll wait till it's done, okay? All right, so our Guacamole instance profile is ready. Let's go over and launch an EC2 instance. So I'll go ahead and select it, and we'll say subscribe on instance launch. So when I launch it, it'll actually subscribe for it. I'm going to go ahead here and just type in Jumpbox, as that is what we are launching. I think it chooses exactly what we need, which is the case here. Yes, it chooses T2 small. Again, if you're not comfortable doing this, don't worry about it. You do not have to do that. One thing I'm not sure is, do we have to set a key pair? It did not specify anywhere. It says instance should be fully booted within 5 minutes. Access the browser via etc. So yeah, that's what I remember. I don't remember us having to SSH into it. To connect to the underlying operating system of EC2 instance, connect SSH with the username of EC2 user. So just in the rare case that I actually do have to get access to this, I suppose that we could download a key pair and use it. Could we also use Sessions Manager? Probably. I mean, it does log in via EC2. So I kind of feel like giving it access just in case. So I'm going to go over to this instance role. If it doesn't have sessions manager, I'm going to add it to it. And it does have a role for SSM. It looks like the older one, so technically it should still work, but that one's not supposed to be used anymore. So for whatever reason, they seem to not have updated that, so it must not be causing any issues. So I'm just going to proceed without a key pair because I'm confident that we can get into that. What really matters is where we are deploying this, so I want to place it into our new VPC and specifically into our public subnet. So that looks fine to me. I'm going to leave all the other settings alone. That looks fine. I'm going to go ahead and launch this instance, and we're going to wait for that to be ready, okay? Maybe while we're waiting, what we can do is go ahead and launch our other instance, I suppose. So, no, we'll wait, okay? All right, so this instance is now launched. Let's see if we can go ahead and get into it. It is in a public subnet, and I'm assuming that we actually do have a public IP address. I'm not seeing one here, which is kind of annoying because it's not auto-assigning it, of course. So maybe we can go fix that. Do we have to restart it to get it? Can I just get a public IP address here? Allow secondary private IP address? No, I just want a public one. Yeah, so I usually don't ever have to assign it after the fact, so I'm never really certain. It's really that change with the it not assigning it, but just give me a moment and let me figure it out. So it looks like that is not possible, so I'm just going to have to generate out an elastic IP address because there's no other way around it. Otherwise, I'd have to tear that down and stand it up again. I'm not doing that. So we'll go ahead and generate out an elastic IP. Great practice for getting elastic IPs, I suppose. And I'm going to associate that with our only instance that is launched, which is over here. So go ahead and do that. And so now that is assigned. I'm going to go back over to instances and take a look here. The status checks have passed. Let's go visit the actual public IP address here. So we'll open that up. We'll advance anyway, despite it not being technically safe. And here we have our... Okay, I get it. Stop that. There we go. Now we can enter in our username and password. So if we go back to our instructions, it should have some default values. It might show in the network console where it is, but the default user is guacadmin. So we'll paste that in here. And then for the password is the default password of the instance ID. Interesting. So we'll go over here and grab the instance ID. I'll just copy and paste it from there. And we'll log in. And so notice that we have no connections. Let's go ahead and create a connection. So nothing interesting to do there. We'd have to enter in a connection URI. So yeah, don't exactly remember how to use this, but give me a second and I'll figure out the next step for us, okay? All right, so I didn't get a whole lot of help, but the thing is that apparently it can connect, or sorry, see EC2 instances, but I'm not sure how it's going to know how to do that if it doesn't have like a key or anything to their EC2 instances. And I definitely made a video on this and I can't find how I did this before, but I'm thinking what we can do is launch another EC2 instance and see what happens. Also, Guacamole is apparently an Apache project, so we could have probably launched it on a T2 micro on a free tier if we wanted to configure it, but that would have been a lot more work. What I'm going to do is go over to our GitHub page. I'm just going to launch up an EC2 instance and the other one. I just want to see if Guacamole can at least see it. But I would still think, like, wouldn't it need a key pair? Like, how else would it work with it? What I'm going to do is go over to press period here, and we'll go into VPC, and we'll grab that NACL one because that one has been very reliable for us. This one here, yep. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and well, actually, I just want to download it, so I'm going to download that to my downloads folder. If I have an older one, I'm going to go ahead and delete it. We'll go ahead and download that. That's now downloaded, which is good. I think I might have some ones I need to fix from earlier. Commit. I have a couple templates from before I want to save. But anyway, we'll go back over to CloudFormation. The hard part is like there's no information online, and I'm really surprised with what year it is and how much this stuff has been around that there's just nobody making videos on this stuff, and you have to piece it together. Or even documentation out there, I should say. But anyway, what we'll do is we'll provide these values in here. So we'll make our way over to VPC. And we'll grab our VPC that we want to have this launch in. And we'll also grab its subnet. I want to place this in the private subnet. So we'll go ahead and do that. It depends if they're in the same AZ or not. Let me just double check here. CAC1 AZ. Yeah, they are. So I think we can launch this in the private subnet. We'll go ahead and do that. My PC2. Don't really care what we call this here. Next. And we'll go down below here and we'll launch this. And so we'll wait for that to get up and running. Okay. Just reading a bit more here, it says, and I guess we're maybe using a variation of Guacamole because it says GU AWS is capable of scanning the VPCs for instances using the AWS API and will add them to the list for connections. So hopefully that is what is going to work in our case here. The other thing is that they would need to possibly be in the same security group. So once this is spun up, I suppose I can add it into it. While we're waiting, I mean, I don't think we have to wait forever for this. But I think for our instances, specifically our Jumpbox here, we could update our security group and add this other one if we have an option here. Click security groups. Go back here. Maybe it's up here. Security. Change security groups. And I'm going to go add the other one in here because if it's in the same network, then that's going to make things a lot easier for them to communicate. And we're waiting for that to initialize. We'll go over here. And I'm not sure what we need to do to refresh the connection. But we'll give it a moment, okay? If we go back over to here, this instance is now spun up. Go over to Guacamole. I'm not seeing anything. I'm going to try logging out. I'm going to try to re-log back in and see if that makes any kind of difference here. Go back to the setup instructions here. I'm just thinking that if I attempt to log in twice, that might fix the issue. Because maybe it might refresh the list as I log in. That's kind of my guess. We'll go here and grab the instance ID as the password. So I don't see anything. Let's go over to settings, connections, groups, users, history, anything. How did I do this before? That's what I can't remember. It's like they just don't have any other additional information. I mean, we can choose how we want to connect. So like we could go here and do SSH and specify it that way. I don't have any SSH information because I would have to have downloaded the key pair when I launched that up, which I did not do. But we do have a bunch of options here. Yeah, so what I'm thinking is maybe I'll tear down this EC2 instance because it's not going to ever appear here. I'm going to go ahead and launch a new EC2 instance. And what we can do is we can just add the connection manually. So we can go here and just add it in. If this will click off, it's not the best interface. I might have to just refresh this. And so maybe what we can do is just use SSH to get in. So what I'll do is I'll launch a new instance. This time I'm going to launch in the same public subnet. I just want to see if it will even appear. So my EC2 instance. And we'll choose Amazon Linux 2, which is totally fine. I want a T3 micro, just that's what I like to have, so we'll say T3 micro. We will have a key pair, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. It says not recommended. Oh, sorry, we'll create a new key pair, so it'll be for Jumpbox. We'll download that PEM. I'm going to go over to here and change our VPC to be the same VPC. I want to launch it this time in the public subnet. I'm going to have it utilize the same subnet as the Guacamole host. And we'll put it in default at the same time as well. Why not? That seems fine to me. I'm going to add a role. We created this in another video, but I made a role so that you can have an instance profile under EC2 SSM role if we need to SSH into this instance for whatever reason. So go ahead and we'll launch that instance. So we'll wait for that to launch, and then we will see if Guacamole picks it up. And if it doesn't, we'll just then go ahead and create this connection here, okay? All right, so I think we waited long enough for that to spin up. It should be up here now. Yeah, we have our EC2 instance. And I mean, they should be in the same place. We'll give this a refresh. But notice that we don't see it. So what I'm going to do is add the connection. And we did download the SSH key, so we can definitely utilize that. So what I'm going to do is go over to connections. I'm going to add a new connection. This will be my EC2 instance. And in here, we'll drop this down to, oops, this darn click thing. You can't there we go. Can't get out of there. Maximum number of connections. I don't care. I'm going to let it assume the default here. The host for the proxy parameters. I'm not sure what I need to do here. I'd assume that we would be placing the stuff in here. So this would be EC2 user. The port would be 22. The host name is going to be the IP address. So since they're on the internal network, I suppose I could just provide the internal IP address. We'll just let me see what I'm looking at here. Private IP, yep. And then there would be the private key. So we downloaded that. I'm just opening it up in something like VS Code. Open with... Nope, that's not what I want. More apps. I'm going to just drag it over to VS Code here. Try this again. Open it up. Thank you. So here we have a private key. So we'll go ahead and copy that. We'll go back over to here. We're going to paste it into here. There is no passphrase, so we don't have to worry about that. Everything else, there's a lot of stuff in here. I don't think I need to set any of this stuff, so I'm going to leave it alone. Yeah, I think this is fine. Public host key base 64, no private key. So let's go ahead and save this. And I'm going to go back over to here and see if I can establish a connection with what I have. I guess I must have instantly connected. Oh, cool. Okay, so let's say, who am I? There we go. So I'm inside the EC2 instance. That's pretty cool. Could we also try to do RDP? Maybe we should give it a go. It might fail, but let's try it anyway, because I'm having good success there. If you're worried about spend, do not do anything. You can just follow along here, but we're going to say my Windows server. It's been a little bit of a while since I've done a Windows server here, but on AWS in particular. And I lost what I was at, so I'll have to launch it again. So I'll say my Windows server, my Windows server. And we'll choose Windows. And it says 22 base. We have free tier eligibility. That sounds great. I cannot imagine it running on a T2 micro. So Microsoft Windows server, which instance size AWS? I know off the top of my head what it is for Amazon Linux, on Azure. But for AWS, I'm kind of forgetting. Just give me a moment to find out. I just have a hard time believing that we can run it on a micro. So I think what I'll do is I'll put it on a, I'm just trying to decide. I feel like I could probably get away with a T3 medium. So I'm going to run it on a T3 medium. Go back here. I used to know because I used to do this all the time on AWS, but now that I'm really good at Azure, I usually run my Windows workloads over there. But we're going to choose T3 micro, or sorry, medium. This is definitely not free tier, so do not use it if you're worried about spend tier. This would use RDP as the protocol to connect, so it's not necessarily going to do that here. So we don't need an SSH key. I'm going to use an existing security group here. I'm going to use the default one. Oh, well, sorry. We'll switch over to the other network first. And I'm going to use the existing ones. This is going to be the Guacamole and the default one. And we will scroll on down. I'll go ahead and hit launch. I do not want it. Well, hold on here. No, yeah, we can't get an RDP value here. So we'll go ahead and just download this. We'll say launch instance. And we'll wait for this instance to launch. It takes a little bit of time, but I'll see you back here in just a moment, okay? You know what? I actually do think we need the PEM, so I'm actually going to go ahead and tear this down. I'm just so used to having like a one-click to connect to RDP that I wasn't considering that maybe it does use the same type of key. So I'm going to go ahead and relaunch this. And we'll just say my Windows Server 2, just in case it conflicts with the one that is spinning down. I'm going to choose Windows. I'm going to go with T3 Micro, or T3 Medium, sorry. T3 Medium. I'm going to choose the existing key pair, the Jumpbox one. I'm going to switch our network out. I'm going to go to our other one. I want to make sure it's in the public subnet. I'm going to use an existing security group, so the default and Guacamole. I'm going to go down here and launch the instance. Now, could we have placed that other one in the private subnet? Absolutely, and it would have worked, but I just wanted to rule out other issues there, and so that's why we did not launch that there. So this will now wait for it to spin up. And I think that we need to use it because I'm pretty sure there is a PEM key involved with RDP, but we'll see here in a moment. While we're waiting, I'm going to just go take a look at the connection information. I think I just closed it in Guacamole, so we'll have to reopen that. We have a lot of junk tabs, so we'll just close a few out here. And I want to go back to our Jumpbox. Then we'll open up this address again here. And we're already in here, so we can see that we have this connection. It's a recent connection. I'm going to go over to settings, and we're going to go to connections, and we'll add a new connection here. And this time, instead of, this root thing's annoying, we'll choose RDP. We'll just say my Windows connection. Down below, we have a few options here. So, yeah, not 100% sure. We'll choose RDP encryption. Not sure what to do for this. But we'll give it a moment for it to spin up and we'll figure it out, okay? While it's been launching, I've just been reading about connecting to your Windows instance. So we'll go down here and look at RDP. So it says the default username of the administrator account depends on the language of the operating system contained in the AMI. To assertion, the correct username, identify the language of your AMI. It's going to be English, okay? So I'm not worried about it. So it's going to be administrator. We'll go back over to here. And so I'm guessing what it's suggesting is the username is going to be this. What is the port for RDP? RDP port. I used to know it off the top of my head. It's 3389. So we'll go ahead and grab that. And we'll paste it in there. The IP address is going to be whatever it spins up with. Well, actually, you'll have a private IP address, so we don't have to worry about a public IP address in this case, which is down here. Apparently, it's already running. So I'm going to grab that private IP address and paste it in here. What the password is, I don't know. I keep expecting to having to put the key pair somewhere. It could be dependent on how we have to establish our connection, but I'm not actually sure. The default username of the admin account depends on the language of the OS. To assert it, that, etc. If you've joined your instance to a domain, you can connect to your instance using the domain credentials you defined in AWS Directory Service on the remote desktop login screen. Instead of using local computer name and generated password, use the fully qualified username of the administrator. Okay. Let's go over here and try to establish our usual connection. So we hit connect. We have the RDP client here. Administrator, yep, so we already know that. You can connect to your Windows instance using the remote desktop client of your choice by downloading and running the RDP shortcut. And that's normally what I'm used to utilizing is that shortcut file. I'm going to download it. I'm just curious what the contents of that file is. So I'm going to drag that over into VS Code. And so here it just shows our full address, auto connect username, so nothing very interesting here. Very simple, straightforward stuff. But what would the password be? So here it shows password. Oh, here it is, get password. Either upload the private key file or copy and paste the contents below. So we have our private key, and we can just drag it on in here. Or, I'll just get the contents of it. I already have it open over here, so I'll just grab it all, copy. And then we'll paste it in. It's a good thing we have the key there. And so that is our password. We'll copy that. We'll go back over to Guacamole. We're going to paste it into here. I don't know what I'm supposed to put as the domain. I'm going to just save it and see if it works. Save. It does seem like we would need more stuff, though. I'm going to go back here, and we'll go over to our active sessions, or however we want to get back home. And is this enough to connect? I feel like it's not. I feel like I'm missing something. So noticing that nothing is happening. Yeah, there we go. So it's not working. So let me go figure it out. I feel like we have to fill in the domain and some other things. It does say here, if you've joined your instance to a domain, which we never did, you can connect your instance using the domain credentials, which we don't have. You define in the AWS directory service, which we did not launch, on the remote desktop login screen. Instead of using local computer name and generated password, use the fully qualified username of the administrator. So that's something we don't really have to worry about. So let's go back over to here, to Guacamole. And I want to edit this connection. I don't want to actually get into that connection. I'm going to go back to my settings. I'm going to play around with this here off screen so you don't have to worry about it, okay? And I'll be back in just a moment. Well, I looked it up, and apparently everything that I've been setting is actually exactly what somebody else would set. So, yeah, not 100% sure why it's not working. We do have it set to RDP here. But I just saw somebody else do it, and they filled it out exactly the same way, but they weren't doing Guac. They were just, Guacamole's AWS version of it. They were just doing regular stuff. I don't know if we'd have to set encryption for this. We could try that. Doesn't seem like we should have to do that. We'll try connecting to this again here. It's not a big deal. We did achieve the Linux side of it, but it would be really nice to be able to establish a Windows connection. One other thing we could do is we could try logging into it through here by, well, we need our password. So I'm just going to copy that and place this in a new file here for a second, new text file. But, my one thought here is we could try to use RDP to connect to it. You'd have to have the RDP client installed. I'm pretty sure that I do. Or if it's Windows, it comes pre-installed, I think. So we'll go ahead and connect. Now, the only issue with this is that this is going out to a private subnet, so it has no way of actually connecting to it. So that's going to be a problem for it. So for this to work, I would have to assign it an IP address, and I can do that really quickly here. I'm going to just go give it an elastic IP very quickly. Just go ahead and do that. And then I want to associate it with our Windows server. And so now if I go back to our instances and I attempt to connect to this down here, it should now have a public DNS, which is great. Apparently we're going to have to keep doing that every time we want to get our password here. We'll copy that, just copying that off screen. We'll paste it in. And we'll decrypt it. Just making sure that's the same one as before. It looks like it is. Good, okay. And I'm going to just download this again. I don't think it's changed. Well, it actually might have because the other one was a private IP address. So I'm just going to double click and see if it can establish a connection. Because that can just rule out that issue that it's not guacamole, it's something that we've done here. The remote desktop cannot connect to the remote computer for the several reasons. But let me just think about this for a moment. So, wouldn't the RDP instance have the public key that that we upload? Yeah, it would. So it should work. But anyway, I don't think it's guacamole. I just think that we just in general can't connect to it. So something is wrong and it's not 100% sure what it is. So just give me a moment to figure that out, okay? One thing I'm wondering is if we actually have RDP access, because this instance here has a security group that might not allow us to do that. Here it's for 443.22.80. You know what? That could be the issue because we don't actually have the ability to have access to that port. So maybe there was no issue with guacamole and it was our security group this entire time. So what I'm going to do is edit our inbound rules. I'm going to add a rule and we're going to go look for RDP. It should be in here somewhere. There we go. And I'm just going to say from anywhere. And we'll save that rule. Let's go back and try this again. Maybe it will work. Reconnect. Nope. But since it's part of this one, it should expect to be able to get a connection from anywhere now. So let's go back over to our instance where we were trying to connect to it. I'm just going to click it again, that file, that RDB file. Okay, and so now it's actually prompting us. So I think that's a good indicator that we can at least connect to it. Let's go ahead and try this, paste, okay. Making sure our password works. So it's connecting. So that means, again, this isn't through guacamole. This is just me using remote desktop client, which again is pre-installed in Windows. If you're on Mac, you got to download it. So we'll go ahead and just close this because I'm already aware that that connection is working. I'm more interested as to why it's not working with guacamole. So I'm just going to go back into our connection. We did play around with it and I did set, I want to edit the connection. I don't want to reconnect. I did set in here this, and maybe there is no encryption security mode, so we'll go back and save that, and we'll establish our connection again, or attempt to. Here. Reconnect. And it still does not like it. We'll go back to our connection information. So the port is correct. We have the correct IP address. I don't think we should have to use a public IP address, but I'm just going to rule it out really quickly and just make sure that we can establish a connection to rule out like inter-network issues. I'm just going to give this a refresh here. We'll grab this one. We ideally do not want to use the public one, but whatever is going to help it work. We'll go ahead and save this. We'll go back here. We'll attempt to connect again. It does not work, even with the public address. So to me, it has to be some kind of setting in here that we're missing, that we're not aware of. I don't think we need to set a domain because it's not connected to domain. I don't know if we need a security mode because it did not specify it. So I'm not sure what it wants as a security mode. I'm going to go see if I can figure it out. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it's worth our time to figure it out. I could probably ask Bako. Bako would definitely be able to figure it out because he's really good at Windows servers. And so it has to be some configuration in here that we're missing. As far as I can tell, we are doing it correctly. And I mean, we're obviously not. There's something missing, but there's no information out there. And we'll be spending hours on this. But we did establish a connection through SSH, so we generally understand how this is supposed to work. So what we'll do is go ahead and just spin these things down. It'll be all done with this here, and we have done our best that we could. Okay. And we'll terminate these instances here. So we'll let that all terminate. And once that is done, we'll go and we will then tear down the VPC, okay? So we'll just wait here till they're all stopped, all right? Okay, so go ahead and give this a refresh. We're going to go ahead and tear down our VPC. And yeah, that was basically Jumpboxes, the best we could do it here today. And you know, other clouds make it a little bit easier. Both Google and Microsoft, you know, they have managed providers or services for this, but AWS uses an open source one here. But of course, Sessions Manager allows you to skip that, and using RDP via the Windows desktop server is usually the way you want to connect anyway. But having a Jumpbox, you can have a lot of additional security parameters added to it. So, you know, it depends on what your use case is. But anyway, before we go, let's not forget about those elastic IP addresses. It's very easy to forget about those. So I'm going to go ahead and release those. And I might as well just get rid of the key pairs as well, because I just want to not have a big mess of stuff. So I have some key pairs here that I'm definitely not using. We'll go ahead and delete them. And we'll see you in the next one. Ciao.